Is BBC One Scott.
Witnesses said her attacker was a well-dressed, respectable-looking man who walked calmly away from the scene. A man was reported to have threatened to commit suicide not far from Miss Dando's home several hours after the attack, but it's not clear whether he was involved. Here's ITN's Paul Davis.
Jill Dando met her killer on the doorstep of the terraced house where she lived in this quiet street in a fashionable district of Fulham. It's believed the television presenter was repeatedly stabbed. Neighbours heard her cries for help, but were unable to save her.
Obviously we were there, but without any sort of medical history between the three of us, you know, the best thing was just to keep her sort of, unless she had woken up from her consciousness, and help her, but we left her there until the ambulance services came.
And what did they do when they arrived?
They were there within, as I said, 10 minutes. Paramedics were there, helicopters, the air ambulance came in, and she was, within sort of 10-15 minutes again, she was taken up in the air and Charing Cross for it, I gather.
It was at the hospital that Jill Dando was pronounced dead. As police began a murder investigation, neighbours recalled seeing a man acting suspiciously. Detectives want to trace the man seen running away from the scene of the attack. He's described as white, tall, with dark hair, and was in his late 30s or early 40s. He was apparently well-dressed and clean-shaven, and was carrying a mobile phone.
At this early stage, is he your principal lead?
He certainly is. I mean, he was a man who was very near to the crime scene and then ran away from the crime scene, so he is somebody who we need to speak to urgently.
Jill Dando was one of the BBC's faces of the 90s, the regular co-presenter of the Crime Watch series.
The best and most surprising new information was on an inquiry dating from 1989.
She was equally at home broadcasting from a sunny beach for the holiday programme. Her death brought expressions of regret on all sides of the House of Commons today.
She had done a huge amount, personally, in the fight against crime by her role, not least in Crime Watch UK, and therefore this makes her death all the more poignant.
BBC friends and colleagues were in shock.
Everybody knew Jill. Her public and her private personas were exactly the same. She really was a warm and lovable person. She had no side to her. She wasn't a prima donna. She was a member of a team. She mucked in.
Late this afternoon, as Jill Dando's sports car was being taken away for forensic tests, police were also looking into reports that someone answering the description of the man they're looking for jumped off nearby Putney Bridge shortly after the attack. Detectives here have confirmed that Jill Dando complained in the past of being followed by a stalker, and that this is one of several leads they're now following. In the early stages of their investigation, police will be reopening old files on obsessive fans. Paul Davis, ITN, Fulham.
Our correspondent Nicholas Owen is at the scene. Nick, what's the latest from there?
Well, Trevor, you can see 100 yards or so down the street behind me, a tarpaulin covering the doorstep of Jill Dando's home where the attack occurred. Forensic experts are making a minute investigation of that scene. Officers carrying out door-to-door inquiries, just the sort of thing that Jill Dando would have been reporting on her Crime Watch programme. It's not at all clear at the moment how Jill Dando met her death. There was talk that she'd been stabbed. A neighbour was adamant to me that she heard a shooting, but post-mortem is going on at the moment, and it'll be several hours before we do know that exact cause.
And Nick, are police following any particular lines of inquiry at this time?
Well, there's great attention being paid, of course, Trevor, to that man seen jogging or running away in that direction, away from us here down Gowan Avenue. It was said that he jogged for a while, stopped at one moment, looked back and then carried on. Well groomed, as Paul Davis was saying in his report. Now, whether he's connected or not, we don't know. And also, we don't know really whether there's any connection between that and what was happening about a mile away at Putney Bridge a little bit later. It is said that a man there was threatening to commit suicide. Again, the police are not sure whether these incidents are connected, but it's obviously a thing that is very, very uppermost in their mind at the moment.
Nicholas Owen, thank you. Buckingham Palace said this evening the Queen was shocked and saddened by Miss Dando's death. Friends and colleagues led tributes to her today. One said she was an extremely talented broadcaster who never let success go to her head. Here's ITN's Katie Derham.
Arriving at the National Television Awards just a few months ago with her new fiancé, Jill Dando demonstrated the good humour and approachability that made her one of television's most popular presenters. Voted BBC Personality of the Year in 1997, her presenting ranged from the news to the holiday programme and, of course, Crime Watch. Her colleagues there are reeling.
Extremely sensitive stage. She was in everybody's living room so often. She was a friend through the holiday programme. She was trusted because of Crime Watch and so much else that she'd done through the news. And enormously liked and admired.
Jill Dando's rise into primetime TV was meteoric. In 1979, aged 18, she began working on her local newspaper, the Western Mercury. 5 years later, she went to work for BBC Radio Devon. From there, she stepped into television on BBC's South West Spotlight programme. But it wasn't long before national TV beckoned. BBC Breakfast News snapped her up in 1988.
It's a very small word, nice, but in Jill's context it has a very big meaning. She was thoroughly, thoroughly nice and utterly decent.
She's a very beautiful, elegant woman and very responsible and mature and a real lady. There aren't many ladies left, are there? She was one.
Jill was loved, I think, by the viewers more than almost anybody I know. She got an extraordinary response wherever she went. She was a star, but without being a star, if you know what I mean. She was a very natural person.
And at long last, her personal life was happy. After a number of well-documented broken romances, she was delighted to announce her engagement in February. Jill Dando had been chosen to present the BBC's worldwide Millennium coverage. Now TV insiders and TV viewers mourn the woman seen as one of the faces of the BBC. Katie Derham, ITN.
The police have said it's too early to talk about what the motive for the murder might have been, but as we've heard, one possibility is that Miss Dando may have been the victim of a stalker. It's likely to be one line of inquiry. As Howard Jones reports, celebrity can make people in the public eye potential targets.
Television presenter Beverly Ashworth was once the victim of a malicious campaign of